Happy Friday morning, everybody. We are back from the Northwest. I'm your host, Shad Dales. We welcome you in here on a Friday morning to the Traded Black podcast. How do I look? You like these shirts? Pure Sun Farms. This is the shirts we got in the great tour out in Delta, BC at their Pure Sun Farms. What an experience that was. We're going to have some great content. If you're a Village Farms investor, you're going to want to see some of the content that we are posting right here in our YouTube channel next week. Both myself and Mr. Anthony Varell had quite the week and quite an experience. A lot of weed we saw, and I cannot believe the quality of product that they're building at the size and scale. So let's welcome in Mr. Varell, Anthony Varell. Good to see you on a Friday morning. How's things?
Good. It's good to be back. Got home yesterday on the red eye, and it's a pain in the ass getting home from Vancouver nowadays to Miami. But great trip nonetheless. I mean, it's great to see the entirety of what's going on at Village Farms, and it was nice to see what's going on at Next Leaf as well. And pumped to dive into both of those via the video content that we're producing from the projects.
Yep. And if Ann and Michael from Village Farms are watching, we told you at dinner the other night that we would wear these shirts at the live stream this morning, and they look good. Look like we're ready to go to work.
These were our souvenirs. These are great. I'll have to wear this with a pair of pants pretty soon.
It was a fun week. That is a great city. An unbelievable city, huh? It is probably the nicest city in North America. Vancouver. No.
It's got things going for it.
Yeah. Well, lots going on. I know we had a few spaces this week, but we'll kick things off. Let's bring in Guap as well off the top too. Good to see you Friday morning. How are you, sir?
Morning. What did a couple million square feet of cannabis smell like?
Nice.
Yeah.
It smelled quite pungent throughout the entire facility. And to be honest, we got into like the depths of the facility at one point, and I got separated from the group, and I was kind of like, I didn't even know how to get back. There was just a ton of just weaving hallways, and I mean, it was impressive. We went through the nursery, flower rooms, we went through the entire operation. But the smell was quite pungent throughout.
So the one nursery room had, if I'm correct, how many plants was it again?
The nursery had 70,000 plants in it. One of the grow rooms, I turned to Orville and I was like, so what's the roundabout number of plants that are in this grow room? He goes 12,422. I go, all right, well, we're using precise numbers, and that's it's good to know. The size and scale was crazy. Yeah. The canopy was impressive. The plants were impressive. It's gonna look quite impressive on paper and on video.
One thing I noticed too is how uniform all the plants were, and they were all basically the same size. And he's just like their president. His name's Orville, and he was explaining about how he's basically visited a lot of farms, and you get plants that are different sizes, which obviously isn't always a good thing. But he is actually originally from Holland, and we all know Holland has a deep understanding and background when it comes to greenhouse space. He actually lived in Saudi Arabia at one time in the construction industry. So this man obviously knows how to, I think, when it comes to efficiencies, think of the margins in that industry and how competitive it is. But I was very impressed with the takeaway. And we also met a team of 4 or 5 people from Holland as well, where Village Farms has made an investment with their infrastructure over there. So all in all, good times. But one thing's for sure that Michael DiGiulio has done. He's invested a lot of money to bring on the right people to run that company. You can kind of get a better understanding as to why there's a lot of people interested in Village Farms moving forward. They did $92 million last year in revenue, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to derail you too much with that smell question, but I'm sure DeSantis would have hated the smell and all of us would have loved it.
I know, right?
So
I'm excited to see the video because the pics looked awesome.
DeSantis would have been happy because Village Farms are actually taking precautions around the facility. There are these cannons that are spraying this it's an organic biological chemical into the air that apparently dampens the actual smell of cannabis in the surrounding area. So Ron might have been in favor of that, which I actually asked because it looked like a tumbler that you use for trimming cannabis. And then Michael was like, no, that's actually cannons to dampen the smell in the surrounding area from the facility.
Mm-hmm.
Smell cannons full of Febreze, or were they just large dryer sheet filled tubes like we used to do back in the day? Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into it.
That's beyond my pay grade, but might be an option to say the least. But let's begin. We've talked about this on Twitter a few times already this week. And question, I'll begin with you, Anthony. And I know some of the stuff that we've already talked about, but how much belief do you believe, based on last weekend's social post that former President Donald Trump made on his Truth platform, and then Lex Friedman podcast later this week, kind of reiterating that post where he's all for I don't want to say all, but he's outlined the benefits of medical marijuana, talked about how Florida is doing really good things in reference to Amendment 3. And I don't want to say he's come out and fully support it, but we've gone back and forth with this. But I think the most important thing is this is now a topic of conversation, which is great and all we can ask for heading into the federal election. And hence the reason why we titled our thumbnail this morning is where are the Dems in all this? But again, I don't want to ask the question, are we reading too much into it? Because it's a good thing. But how are you taking and, I guess, perceiving a lot of the information that he has shared over the past 6 days?
Yeah, man, I think we're reading a little bit too much into it. It was great to see him on the podcast say the medical marijuana is amazing. He knows plenty of people that use this amazing medical marijuana. I mean, he didn't come out as if he had very educated talking points or like the nuances of like anything in the industry. I highly doubt if you were to catch him on the street right now and say, hey, what are your views on rescheduling and how's the process going? I don't think he would probably be able to run me through that conversation. That being said, it's a complete 180 in what we expected his stance to be on the plant. He's talking about it, which is good. He's bringing momentum to it. And what he's done for Florida, which I had alluded to on the space, from an amplification standpoint on social media, the fact that he mentions Florida, which is his home state, which I'm assuming he's trying to gain some momentum against Kamala, coming out in support of 3, as she said, absolute radio silence on the topic. He's gained a couple percentage points in the polls in Florida. I don't know if it's directly attributed to cannabis or it's directly attributed to just the maturation of the race and that he's actually on the press circuit right now. She's not. But it seems to be working and it's a net positive. I mean, if Donald Trump was not saying anything or if he was negative about it and came out and said no on 3, we would have all got kicked in the nuts pretty hard. That would have not have been a very good outcome. But it seems to be in our favor. He seems to be perpetuating the message. He also said he's going to come out with with another incremental statement next week. So I'm assuming these are building on one another.
Yeah.
And then we might see some mention of cannabis come the debate. Not guaranteed. I still think it's a low percentage, but it might come up at the debate, especially as he probably will want to harp on Kamala's record as a prosecutor and what she's done historically in terms of, I'll call it criminal justice without the reform.
Guap, do you think that Donald Trump not has a chance, but do you think that he'll steal this issue for the Democrats and play the card that they've been just ineffective for the past 4 years?
I don't know if he will, but he's certainly trying. I mean, it's
that's for sure.
Yeah, I think this is such a charged topic because we have an election going on right now, and people are extremely polarized one way or another, and we talked about this. So a good test, I think, is how many minutes can you stand to listen to the candidate you're not voting for? And so a lot of folks would like to say, well, Trump's just saying whatever to get votes. That's what both parties do. It's vote buying season, folks. So whether or not he means it or not, I think you have to go back and look at some of the previous statements he's made in 2015, 2016. He's always said this is a states' rights issue.
Yep.
This is not the first time we've heard from Trump talking about cannabis, like some people like to claim. And I'm not throwing, the show's not throwing their support behind one candidate or another. We're just excited that both presidential candidates are talking about cannabis and trying to one-up each other. This is fantastic. You can't get bogged down in what month will what milestone happen. That never works. If we're talking about the future of the industry and the future of the plant, this is exactly what you want to see, is Trump coming out with some pretty bold statements. Kamala said some stuff in the past too. She supported the MORE Act. She had the round
Yep.
table with Fat Joe. She said behind closed doors, we need to legalize it. But I think we're all at the point where, yeah, words are great. Let's see some action. And if these words trading back and forth lead to actions sooner rather than later, great.
Yeah. Well, here's the reality right now. We have a few offhand remarks from Trump, but really nothing in the Republicans' party platform. And then on the flip side of that, we have Democrats that have basically outlined some interesting and movable statements and legislation, but really have nothing to show for. And we're at a standstill right now. And I think, yes, it's great, but I think the biggest question, I think we're learning more and more what happens post-election, where we actually see some movement. But then it's great to see, obviously, the December 2nd ALJ hearing. So this will remain a topic of conversation even after the election, which makes me believe that it's not going to go away, which is promising to say the least, because 4 years ago, we didn't have a hearing after the election. So it'll stick around a little bit longer. But regardless, we won't know until we know. And when we know, that'll be November 5th night to see where things sit with Amendment 3. But we'll go from there. But I think I don't know if there's really anything else we can add at this time. But I think really it's good to see he's talking. But I also think that we shouldn't be reading too much into this, because any kind of headline we want right now in this industry is a lot of hope for a lot of cannabis investors. And I think that's where we got to be a little bit tread lightly, to say the least.
Yeah. And I mean, I think just one thing, I guess, to end that segment, I don't think Donald Trump can't steal the issue from Kamala. I mean, I see a lot of people saying that. Kamala, Biden, they initiated the rescheduling process.
Yep.
We're deep into that process to the point where there's an ALJ on December 2nd that's going to start to really tighten up that process and bring it home. Trump can't steal that. That's progress that's been made by them. So, I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due, but she needs to talk about it. She needs to say something about it. I mean, the Democrats put out an entire position document on Twitter. I think it was Tuesday.
Yeah.
The past tense reclassifying cannabis points that they've used commonly disappeared. They weren't on there. So she's silent. The talking points seem to be exit stage left. Until proven otherwise that she actually gives a shit about this, Trump is going to steal her thunder, let's say, leading up to November 5th. But Trump is not going to be able to steal the cannabis issue from her if they can actually articulate their argument with what I basically just said.
But how confident do you feel that she's going to actually comment on something leading up to the election? Like right now, I don't know.
I think she's going to be forced. I think she's going to be forced to. He's not going to stop talking about this, I don't think. I think he's understood.
You think he brings it up again and again?
I think he's understood how much it resonated on social media. You saw what it did on Twitter. It was everywhere. The impressions were tens of millions. And he understands. Donald Trump is a smart politician. He understands what resonates with people. He understands what's going to move the numbers. And I know that people say cannabis is not an election issue, which if you want to talk in the pure sense, I do agree with them. I don't think it is. I think it's a societal issue and a social issue that polls well. So leave it at that. And Donald Trump is understanding that. And they just did an A/B test of what mentioning cannabis does for them. It's done well. It's resonated in a positive sense. He's not stupid. I think he's going to keep mentioning this. And if she doesn't at all, then I think it's kind of cause for concern.
I don't know, like people might have different terms when it comes to a political issue. I keep hearing this, how it's not really an issue heading into the election, but I sometimes wonder, how can it not be when it generates that kind of interest and feedback on social media? I don't know how.
Because it doesn't affect your it doesn't affect citizens of the United States day-to-day well-being or day-to-day life at scale. You want to talk about issues around the election, the border, inflation, economic policy, foreign policy, shit that matters. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love cannabis, but I'm not going to sit here and say it's as big of an issue as the border, or it should be in the same conversation around taxes and everything else around government reform. It falls very, very low on that list. It's very, very high if we're talking about societal and social issues, or you want to talk about criminal justice reform. But
when
if we're talking about real campaign, if you're talking about true issues that voters actually care, it's simply correlated to the dollars in their wallet and their well-being on a daily basis. And as much as we all like to think so, cannabis doesn't affect that.
Yep. I also think when you see tweets yesterday about a proposed slashing corporate tax down to 15% if he's elected president, and the amount of great response that got from a lot of Americans. And when you put and compare the two examples, you'd think that obviously slashing corporate tax, among other things, would definitely outweigh. Not sure what's going on with the template, Arns. You there, buddy? You falling asleep? Anyway, I honestly think that you would think something like that would clearly outperform cannabis, but then you get a cannabis comment and there it is. It gets a huge, huge response. So to your point, Anthony, yeah, I do think that she's going to have to force to be said something about this, because he's just going to play that gravy train all the way up until November 5th, among other things. And eventually she's going to have to make some sort of comment, which is great to see, because if he didn't comment, I could just see it leading up to the election. During a debate, she could talk about how they have basically provided cannabis reform in the past 4 years, which is so far from the truth. Yes, there's been progress, but nothing concrete has been made.
Yeah. When I saw, the statement from Trump on Saturday, this is not too long ago, guys. There were calls on Sunday and Monday saying, where are the Dems on this? Where's the response? It doesn't move that quick. And especially when you don't have a bunch of policies published on your website yet, they're scrambling over there and they're trying to figure out what to say on everything. We have to look at what Kamala said in the past. She was the sponsor of the MORE Act. She was part of the administration that initiated rescheduling.
Look at that comment right there. That is bang on. It's bang on. I can already kind of envision that debate, because she can talk about, I've changed my stance, but you haven't done shit. There's nothing concrete in place. So how could we believe what you're saying when you flip-flopped and so many things over the past 4 years? Now I get it. Great job, Jungle Java.
No, I think Trump, look, the Freeman interview, Trump retweeted it out. In the intro, cut together, is just a brief mention of cannabis. That's huge. That's the, it might as well be a sort of a stance and policy document. And Elon retweeted it. I mean, a lot of people our heads are exploding on both sides of the parties, realizing where Trump is saying he stands on this. And so I can't look at that as anything but a net positive. I know we all had PTSD, and I'm the first one to say I don't believe a thing that politicians say, but this is polling well. It's going to help him in the debate when he pulls a Tulsi and attacks her Kamala's record. I think that's coming, but again, who knows, right? But yeah, he's developing his stance on this, and I'm for it, because it pushes the conversation forward, and let's see some action.
Love to be a fly on the wall, to be in the room if Kim Rivers did indeed get a chance to speak to Donald Trump and the conversations that were had there, because
she did.
I know she did, but I'm just saying, being a fly on the wall, I would love to know how that conversation went. But clearly it was positive for the industry. And if there's any person that's going to speak to Donald, I think Kim's the right person for that. Anyway, I know you got 11:15. You got to get out of here. You're heading up to opening dispensary. Is that in Panama City with Mr. Brady Cobb?
Yeah, Panama City up in the Panhandle, right up next to Tallahassee.
Tough life he's got, Guap. He's going to be flying up in a nice private jet, head up to Panama City, the life of Mr. Varel. But hey, great stuff.
It's interrupting my afternoon golf round.
I just think it's hilarious that we've got Anthony defending Kamala and her and the Democrats and me saying,
whoa, where did I defend?
No, I mean,
defend Kamala.
You supporting and voting for Kamala. No, I'm kidding. I'm just saying what a strange world we live in, where we're taking in both sides. We're not just immediately dismissing what
After
one
the
candidate
ALJ
did.
hearing popped out, to be completely honest, I'm just being very pragmatic and
Yeah.
level-headed about things moving forward and not trying to be too forward-looking. I mean, I think the writing was on the wall the entire time that that ALJ hearing was coming down the pipe. I think I was completely naive, not thinking it was going to come out and we were going to get some sort of final ruling before the election. So as far as it comes around rescheduling and just the political landscape as it relates to cannabis, where we're speculating on a lot, I mean, that event kind of made me take a step back and really think about how to look and perceive all this stuff moving forward.
Yeah. Ben Lovin, Jason Beck, and Dana Rohrabacher. I actually interviewed, you can find it on our YouTube channel. I interviewed Dana Rohrabacher probably year and a half ago.
You know who's the one that needs to speak to Trump is Steve Daines.
100%.
Steve Daines, Dave Joyce, Nancy Mace, they need to speak to Donald on banking reform.
Yeah.
And they need to speak to Donald on the merits of the cannabis industry.
100%.
They will be able to clearly and concisely tell him the problems, the shortfalls, and how this can get fixed. Because one thing we talked about with Anthony Coniglio on Wednesday is I don't have a lot of hope, and I don't think anybody else does, for anything that's going to need to be a legislative process. And it looks like nothing's really going to get done outside of a legislative process happening.
Yeah.
So he needs to get up to speed and up to speed fast if you're going on the thesis of Donald Trump winning the election is good for cannabis.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, Ben, you would think Dana Rohrabacher is the person that Trump needs to speak to, because the list that you just outlined, they're light years ahead of Dana. Dana is pushing 80 years old. And quite honestly, when your political career is over, it's not like you keep in touch with a lot of these politicians. You're yesterday's news. Dana's a great guy and everything, but Nancy Mace, Steve Daines, Dave Joyce, those are the top three people that need to speak with Donald Trump pertaining to cannabis. I'd be curious to see if the Dems actually were surprised that he commented on it, if it was not a priority for them. And yes, it was pushed back, but we can keep analyzing and speculating a lot of this stuff. But I think to some degree, do you guys think they were surprised at all by him commenting on it?
So Guap brought up a very good point in the show notes around the injunction, I think, that went against Biden's executive order for student loans. And they didn't proceed with an ALJ hearing, and it's tied up in litigation right now in I forget what circuit court, because on the grounds of them circumventing that ALJ hearing. So if we didn't do this, we could very well be looking at something that's just like that. And you're talking, you can get wrapped up for years, and it can just sit there. So it is better net that we are going through the motions and making this durable via the ALJ.
Joshua Red might disagree with you. Trump only cares that it'll make him look good. He doesn't care that it'll actually do any good. Look at his policies, pennies to dying industries and corporate bailout.
I don't have any comment on that.
Yeah, I don't either. But
politicians saying things that look good to buy votes right before an election, I'm shocked.
You're right. All right, let's now shift. Topic number 2, in the state of Virginia, an Air Wellness who received a license to operate in a district, which was HSA1. Anthony, great opportunity for this company as they look to expand their footprint across the country. So walk us through, I guess there's 5 districts within this state. So they're in HSA1. So how does this work and how's this all set up?
So they won what's called a pharmaceutical processor license in HSA1 in Virginia. This is the paper license. Couple things around the process. What I was reading this morning, there were 33 applicants that all tied to win this license. I'm not sure what the grading looks like in Virginia, but I am very familiar with what the grading looks like in Florida. And the arduous nature of these applications and the attention to detail, as well as just the human nature of grading, I don't understand how 33 applicants can all tie. If there was any sort of nuance to this application process,
so
go
a step further. What are you alluding to then? Like, is there something suspicious going on behind the scenes?
I don't know if it's suspicious. I think that they might have wanted to basically let everybody tie and then leave it up to a game of chance with what they did, which was on YouTube using the randomizer with the entire list of 33 applicants that tied. I used that same randomizer last week for my fantasy football league to create the draft order.
Good to know.
That being said, congratulations to Air. I mean, HSA in Virginia is a big win. We just saw Verano acquire the asset from the Cannabis for 90 million some odd dollars.
Right.
Virginia is a market to be in, especially with the low barrier to entry, such as winning the paper license. That being said, it's going to take a hell of a lot of capex now for them to build out Virginia. I'm going to be looking for comments from David as per how this is going to develop. Maybe it's something like Florida where they go in, find an asset, and then whoever underwrites the asset also underwrites the construction costs, such as what's going on in Florida with their indoor grow. But it's going to be expensive, and it'll obviously pay off in the long term. But it's going to be expensive to build out Virginia. They got to build out. They got to build out from the ground up.
All right. So HSA1, that district, does it cut into any market share of any existing multi-state operators?
No, there's no one operating currently in HSA1.
Each district gets one operator. And so they carved up the state. HSA1 was held up in litigation, evidently. So that's why no one, I'm looking at a map of where are the dispensaries in Virginia right now. That's why that area has 0 dots. So, you'll see a lot of Rise. The closest one to me is Rise in Danville, Virginia, for example. So it's a beautiful area. I drive through it. It's Skyline Drive, Shenandoahs are up there. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous area. I don't know how populated it is. There are some cities out there, Fredericksburg, Winchester, for example, which are the 2 cities I drive between. But it's still it's a great state to get a foothold in, because eventually it will go rec. And so we're still waiting for that. But in terms of being sort of operator friendly, imagine having a whole region of a state where you're the only player. Sounds pretty nice.
You can wholesale to the entire state.
Yeah,
from my understanding.
Emilio writes, did you guys know Kentucky received 5,000 licenses like on the last day? Wow, that makes you scratch your head.
Saw that over on Marijuana Moment.
Justin Baker, who actually works for X, is now checking in with us. Good to see you, my friend. We got to get back to you in the next week or so. But look, for everybody that's here, I think that you are followers with us on Twitter. But if we were to do some sort of promotion to get more followers, what do you think is a promotion that we could give away that would be enticing? Let us know in the comment section below, and we'd love to get your feedback, and we'll execute that within the next 30 days. But let us know your thoughts. All right, moving along here on a Friday morning. You got what, 15 minutes, Anthony, and then you're out the door. So I'll make this nice and short. We got mic drop as well. Want to shift now to the topic of hemp, which like we always do every single week, and more notably THC zero. There was a case with a woman that was fired for taking legal substances that actually involved THC zero that went all the way to court. And we learned a few things about this case, Guap, that involved in some sort of way the Chevron deference. Hopefully I always mispronounce that.
Yes.
And the Farm Bill. So you want to maybe outline what I'm alluding to pertaining to that? Because this was an interesting win, I think, for the industry.
Sure. Jeff Schultz's law firm, Foley Hoag, actually did a great write-up. McQueenie is his name. He did the write-up, not Jeff. But it was an interesting read if you're into this kind of stuff, because essentially, to summarize, the woman was fired. She claimed that the substances she was using, and it's basically a laundry list of every hemp-derived cannabinoid, were all legal. And so she was, essentially saying that she was wrongfully terminated. And what's fascinating about this is the court actually said, because the Chevron deference is no longer a factor, that the DEA's stance on hemp-derived cannabinoids are no longer a factor. The DEA said, I know the Farm Bill says 0.03, but, synthetic cannabinoids like THC zero, THCA is just cannabis. Like, those things are still illegal. Now, the circuit court basically said, no, it turns out the letter of the law is the Farm Bill. That's the source of truth. And according to the source of truth, these are legal substances. So it's a win for the hemp-derived market. It definitely has some implications on THCA. So if you were considering about, say, converting a very large greenhouse to THCA, and shipping it across the country. This would be, I still think the hemp derived industry is standing on sand, but I think the sand got a little firmer
I
as
do
a
too.
result of this decision. And yeah, it's interesting to see how it all plays out. You know me, I say just legalize it. 50 states allow interstate commerce, deschedule, and let the free market decide what people put in their bodies. But hey, you know, that's
Yeah,
common sense, isn't it?
that would be the home run, which
A
we'll
lot
get
of
there
this stuff,
eventually.
a
But
lot of this stuff would go away. Just have
Everywhere
high
we look,
testing
though,
standards
to,
and
to
let it
your
rip.
everywhere we look, though, right now, to your point, it's like this industry is sitting on sand, and it's getting a little bit more and more firmer. And I don't know how
I mean, this
realistic is.
was this
Go
was a
ahead.
good. This was probably good and bad, because the good thing is the court system basically told the DEA, pound sand, we don't agree with you. We're going to go by the farm bill, and
Yep.
we're going to defer from your ambiguous guidance. That being said, in the best interest of the cannabis industry, if they would have sided with the DEA, the THC zero was a Schedule 1 substance, that would have probably been the first step to regulating hemp as cannabis is regulated now. So if it went to Schedule 1, I would assume that it would drop to Schedule 3 with cannabis, which would reform the overall industry and kind of put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
I tend to prefer the decision that they made, deferring from the DEA, because that can potentially set further precedent for the state legal cannabis industry moving forward. But I mean, that's going to get into a whole bunch more legal nuance that not really going to run through.
Mr. Vickers, that's brilliant. Biden is a fucking Republican and Trump is a Democrat, and both are opposite parties. Wow. Might be some truth to that. Old man writes, Canada will show you the way. Yeah, I got to admit, man, it's federally legalized in Canada. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, it's just part of society now. And this whole issue of, oh, if it smells too much, like no one brings that up. It's just part of society 6-7 years later. And yeah, there are some kinks to work out still regarding the industry, obviously the excise tax. But for the most part, it's part of society now. And we saw that firsthand in Robson Street this week in Vancouver, Anthony. What a great dispensary that was, by the way. Great dispensary.
Oh, yeah. Inspired Cannabis was awesome. Awesome. I'd love to see the revenue model. I mean, big dispensary with the sales pretty much taking place in the back. But the way that they kind of bring you through the consumer journey with all the brands that have their spotlight and their showcases, leading you back towards the sales room in the back was great. I mean, they had shreds up there for OGI. They had Fraser Valley and Pure Sun Farms right at the front of the store. Spinach was up there. All the big brands were up there to really interact with before you go back. And Jeter was at the front.
Yeah.
Really, it was a great showcase and a great looking dispensary.
But you said this when you went back, when you were there out there in July, that there's not as many dispensaries in certain areas really across the city like there is in Toronto. And I know Raj Grover, who's been on from High Tide, talks about smaller dispensaries, square footage dispensaries. That way you're not spending so much money per square foot. And he's got a great model in place. We wondered because if you're on Robson Street in Vancouver, for those not familiar, that's kind of like the Yonge Street of Toronto, or as I said, the Magnificent Mile in Chicago. Like it's pricey. But we did speak to a few members of the Village Farms team, and they have 9 locations in key areas across Vancouver, and it seems to be the premier dispensary brand in the BC. And they're paying big money, obviously, for leasing that space, but they're making a lot of money too, which is great to see, obviously.
Absolutely. And I think it's also a function of concentration. Like where we were staying in Cole Harbor in the financial district, I don't think I saw a dispensary once when we were walking around.
Yeah, you're right.
That area. You didn't see any dispensaries until we got up to Robson. On both sides of the city, there were 2 Inspired Cannabises on Robson. And then there were several others that were in Gastown and Yaletown, and they're spread out throughout the city. But I didn't see a single one in Financial or Cole Harbor. And if you're walking around Toronto, they're everywhere on top of each other. There were cannabis dispensaries next to cannabis dispensaries.
I know.
When we were in Toronto.
One thing that grabbed my attention too, the one place that we were out, man, I pray that we get some progress with the mental health issues and some of the stuff that's being studied, because when we actually drove through is it West Hastings Street? I've heard of East Hastings Street. I've heard it. I know a lot of people have been through it. I've never actually gone through there myself, but wow. It's probably the biggest addiction area in all of Canada, and you can really see the people struggling there. There needs to be change when it comes to that.
The crazy thing is, what you saw really wasn't the worst part.
It wasn't?
No.
Wow.
It gets hairy when you go back in a couple blocks from where we were.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just want to open a dispensary in Gastown.
Yeah.
Gastown gas. Whew.
Gastown gas.
Yeah.
Fill her up. That sounds great.
Great city though. Clean city. And when I know that some of the cons to it is that it rains a lot, but man, oh man, we were there all week and it was sunny, gorgeous. Nothing better.
It's one of my favorite places to go to.
There's the ocean.
Travel.
By the way, off to the right is a 10,000-foot mountain. Like, it's pretty incredible. For those joining us, this is the TDR Traded Black podcast. Shad Dales along with Anthony Vrell and Guap. Anthony, you got to go in T-7 minutes. For those wondering why we're wearing these, we had the tour of Village Farms and their Pure Sun Farms 2.2 million square foot facility. These are the shirts that we had to walk around with. And if this podcast does not work out, then these are the types of jobs and opportunities that we're going to apply for. So hope that makes sense. All right. Final thing. Let's talk about the state of North Carolina. Big weekend coming up, Guap, in your own background. Saturday, 10 a.m. will mark the long anticipated launch of adult use marijuana sales on a tribal land within North Carolina. Are you going to be going?
I don't know if I'll be going tomorrow, Saturday at 10 a.m. I don't think I want to be caught up in that madness. But yeah, the Great Smoky Cannabis Company, run by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, they started sales of medical cannabis on 4/20 this year. As you may know, I mean, I'm living and I'm in North Carolina right now. There is no medical or recretional cannabis program.
Correct.
So this is pretty unique.
How many is there? 7 states that don't have?
You think so?
Yeah.
What's that?
7 states that don't have a cannabis program. There's only 7 remaining in the country.
Yeah, they were debating on the space last night. Who's going to be the last state? My money's on Mississippi. They were the last to repeal prohibition in 1966 with alcohol, but North Carolina is making a run for it. And but yeah, the rec sales open Saturday at 10 a.m. And not surprisingly, some of the Republican senators and representatives are really not happy about it and are threatening to cut off federal funding to the tribe, which is particularly nasty.
I bet you the revenue, if they start to really go full bore into cannabis, will outweigh the federal funding that they get from the government. As far as the subsidies and stuff go, I'm sure there's a break-even point somewhere.
100%. It's the time.
Imagine if you're right. We were talking about how Air's got it sweet, having an entire region to themselves in Virginia. Imagine being the only dispensary within hundreds of miles surrounded by states that don't have legal cannabis.
But where are they getting the product?
What's that?
Where are they getting the product?
I'm assuming they're growing it on the res, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look a little deeper on that.
That would be nuts if they just opened like a Planet 13 size dispensary, slapped a giant glass top greenhouse on that property, and just recreational cannabis for everybody in North Carolina. Just come on down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 4.5 hour. I mean, North Carolina's pretty big. It's not close to a lot of people. I'd say it's about 45 minutes west of Asheville.
Okay.
But it's
Asheville's where? North or southern part of North Carolina?
So it's western. It's sort of in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I used to live out there.
Borders like Tennessee?
Kind of. Still got hours to go before you get to Tennessee, but you can get to Tennessee pretty pretty quick. Anyway, what I'm saying is the thing that has yet to be seen, and this is the main reason I won't be showing up with a video camera on day one, is okay, so you buy a bunch of cannabis and then you drive off the res and then you got a welcoming party of police or something. Like, I want to see how that part plays out. You would have to know your rights and have things in a very smell-proof container, not consent to any searches. That would be my recommendation. But man, if you look like me and you're driving off the reservation on the first day of rec sales, good luck. You know,
I just
what
came up.
are you gonna have a Grateful Dead sticker on your car and I love disc golf? Like, I'd be.
I just came up with the ad campaign of the year for that dispensary.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, go to the Pot Brothers at Law. You need them to make a shut the fuck up video to inform everybody when they're driving off your reservation with their recreational cannabis on exactly what to do.
Right. And then after you do that, shut the fuck up.
Correct.
I'm just saying, let's see how that plays out. I wish them the best. And I hope, if they make a ton of money off this, and honestly, I hope it pressures North Carolina and some other southern states around here to get it together. If this is going to be happening, it's sort of like I hope that the hemp-derived sector would drive states to legalize, because they have all these products that are under-tested and synthetic, and maybe it would drive the legal cannabis programs and get legislature to get their stuff together to put it in place. This is another one of those moments, I think, where it just illustrates how bonkers this state-by-state system is, and applies just a little bit of pressure to actually come up with a program that works.
Yeah. All right, you got to run, Anthony.
Yeah, I got a plane to catch.
I often wonder why my mom called me Shad. I thought Anthony and Dale joined the Ghostbusters. There's always one.
It's crazy. It's crazy that Chris doesn't know your first name yet.
Come on, Chris,
or he might try to be, starting the trend of us calling you Dales instead of Shad.
Well, it's not even Dale's; it's Dale.
I was.
And then I got to say, Shad. Is that Chad? Is that Sean? Is that Shed? Is that Shovel? It's just a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Imagine if your mom named you Guap. It's tough in middle school.
Oh yeah.
Guap would be something.
Leave a comment below. Do you think his real name is Guap? Yes or
it
no?
Is. I checked. His legal name on his driver's license is Guap.
Yes. Middle name, actually. His middle name is Guap. First name is Avocado Guap. I'll leave it at that. Anthony, enjoy your flight to I know it was a pretty bad one, but enjoy your flight. Shovel Dale is my favorite presenter.
I almost you were away for a week, Shad, so I almost did the intro as what was it, Brad Kales?
Oh, that's beautiful.
But it wasn't April Fool's, so we played it pretty straight.
All right, gentlemen, I gotta run. I will. I'll give you a call this afternoon, Shad.
Huff Shaddy. I like that. Thanks, Jungle Java. This is the Shovel Dale Report. We don't set the narrative. We dig into the narrative.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. I get it every day. And if I go to Starbucks, you make an order, and it's just like you put down your first name, and it's just like SHADD, and I get it's SHADE or EED. It's a little bit of everything. But I actually got a friend request from a guy named Shad Smith out of San Diego, spelled with 2 D's, and he said, join this group. It was called the Fraternal Order of the Shad. 44 members. We were all going to get together in Vegas and have name tags that said, hi, my name is Shad. No, I said Shad. And it didn't work out. Shade made that mistake once, never again. Look forward to
hanging Shads. I love it.
All right, time for the greatest part of the week. It's time for Mic Drop with Mr. Guap. Happy Friday, everyone.
In the land of red, white, and blue, a tale unfolds quite anew, where Trump and Kamala in a political dance discuss cannabis, and not by chance. Trump once a critic, now he sways to the tune where cannabis pays. In Florida, he nods, let it be legal here. A shift, some say, out of fear. Kamala, with her prosecutorial past, now advocates a contrast vast from locking up to setting free. Cannabis reform, her new decree. They stand on stages left and right, debating late into the night about the plant that's green and tall. Shouldn't it be free for one and all? Trump says, leave it to the states, but is past a different fate. Sessions once rolled back the ease, now stamps Trump's stance, a bit of a tease. Kamala, with a laugh once light, now sees the wrong and sets it right. Decriminalize, she boldly claims, her evolution, not just games. The people watch, some in delight, others skeptical in the night. Will actions follow words so grand, or will this too just shift like sand? In this poem, a political twist on cannabis, they've both been kissed. By public opinion, they're swayed in this game where power's played. So here's to Trump and Kamala too, to this cannabis tale so new. May their policies reflect their claim for the people, not just the game.
Yeah.
I got some assistance from Grok on that one.
I love it.
Grok. I did write the high poem, but
you know, when I was listening to you, did you ever see the movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise?
I have.
You know, when he does his little poems and then all of a sudden he's like, let me pour you a drink. When consumption lounges actually start to take over the country, we got to start our own club and do our podcast out of there, my friend. And then you got to get on the counter and it's time for mic drop. And the bar is open or the bong is open.
Yeah.
Well said, my friend.
I would say to everyone out there, you know, I know the elections got everyone really charged up, and everyone it's clearly our instinct as humans to try to predict the future. If you predicted Trump coming out saying these things about cannabis, your reward was what in terms of price action?
Yeah.
You're wrong. People lambast you on Twitter. You're right. What do you get, right? So I think we should all spend a little more, get back to the trying to get people to understand the cannabis sector and the opportunity that lays ahead as if this is day one, and spend a little less time trying to get someone to vote for your candidate because of what they said and might do on Twitter. That's not going to work, guys. There's so many other factors of why people vote. Or, you know, just understand that this is still a sector that needs a lot of awareness. And when they start coming around, we should have resources for them to learn more and not just vitriol and hate and talking shit. I don't see how that works for us. And it's a small space, guys. And let people vote for who they want to vote for. And let's see how it all plays out. I keep saying that. Let the rescheduling process play out. Let the debate happen. No one can predict it. No one can predict what's going to happen. So you don't get any points or money for being right. Investment timeline.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, like as I said before, here's the takeaway: that what do we know now? Trump said something which basically is going to force the Dems, to Anthony's point, to say something leading up to the election. So what's the win out of here and the takeaway? It's a topic of conversation, which is all we can ask for. So regardless of what happens basically in the election, the next thing that's going to happen that's going to be continue a topic of conversation is the ALJ hearing. Maybe this isn't a bad thing necessarily. You know, obviously rescheduling happening before the election would have been great, but it keeps the conversation extended, and in some degree, with that topic in place, might hold one of these political leaders accountable for actually following through with actually making some real change. Because if these ALJ hearings are going to take place and it's extended into the new year, then from time to time, this is going to get brought up, and, you hope you get progress. But to your point, I think this is all we can pretty much ask for. And it's a good thing for the industry, right?
It is. I'd rather them be talking about cannabis than not talking about cannabis.
Yeah.
I mean, this is good for the plant long term, and that's really what we should all be about. And less about who's right, who's wrong, who predicted, who called it. who to vote for, who hasn't done action, who will. That's all silly. It's all gonna be smoke vapors in the long run. It doesn't matter. If you woke up today and you learned everything about cannabis and you realize where we're at, I think people would have a much different perspective on the prospects looking forward than if they lived through the last 4 years and were paying attention every single day like us.
Agreed.
Right? So get awareness, get people to understand the issue in Florida, get people to understand in other sectors. You got a lot of NVIDIA. Maybe you should check out the cannabis sector, right? Get people. That's a good use of time. Trying to get me to vote for whoever you think is better, because I don't know if that's a great use of time at all.
Well said, Guap. Would rather them talk about cannabis than not talk about cannabis. Agreed. Jungle Java. I know you're always bang on, but holy cow, you're sharp here this morning. Look at what is happening with the student loan thing. ALJ hearing is good news, even if the process takes longer than we would like. That's putting things into perspective. John Verville, good to hear you, my friend. Christopher Brady, yes, I could see how a lot of people could say Christopher Brady. Kindness and education is the way to go. Yes, it is, Jungle Java. Michael Robinson, be nice, buddy. Your comments are getting a little harsh lately. We're trying to do the best we can. I hear you, brother. I like your feedback, but be nice. Be nice. What else we got?
I need to read through these comments. I can't talk and read comments at the same time like you guys.
That's what I have to do pretty much during this whole podcast. But anyway, I think that's all we can ask for right now. And I think you're going to see more developments in the next couple of weeks. But summer's over. Fall is back. Good way to start, the industry, right away with Trump over the weekend and then following up again this week. So I love what he's doing, though. He's keeping the other party on the clock and accountable for what they need to do. Even if you don't agree with him actually doing something about it, it indirectly pushes the envelope forward for the Dems, which is a good thing.
Yes.
On that note, you have yourself a great weekend. Big weekend coming up in the Tar Heel state. You enjoy your weekend, and make sure everybody, as usual, make sure to leave some comments below. Smash that like button if you can. I'm greatly appreciated. And subscribe to our Baked In newsletter and tell all your friends about it. We're going to start strategizing to put a promotion in place. So it'll involve maybe you, the posse that we have here of subscribers. And if you can push this out to your network, then might be an idea to give away a big prize. So Shad, give away some hemp for the giveaway. I don't think that would be smart, but it's an idea. Can never turn away anything. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. And we'll see you back here Monday at the usual time of 4 o'clock. Guap, good hearing you from you, my friend. Enjoy your weekend. Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching our latest podcast. Lots of momentum building. You guys getting all excited? Leave comments below. Again, we want to take this viral. Smash that like button and make sure to click on that bell for all notifications as we start to bring on bigger and bigger guests. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, by logging on to thedalesreport.com. And we want to take this viral, as I said, and make this community grow. So make sure to subscribe on that channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.